Good morning, afternoon and evening, my crazies. My name is Angela, I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and welcome back to today's video. Now today's video is for the corner to corner join as you go method. Okay, so I'm going to be working this little swatch here for you. Now I've actually got 4 squares all worked separately, and the squares are 5 by 5. Okay, now I'm sorry it's not brilliant. I would have used more colours if I had more colours, but I'm trying to use up my stash, so I found some yarn I'm not overly keen on, and that's what's being used today for today's tutorial. Now I really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any issues with today's video, please remember to put a comment in the comment section and down below, and I will help you out as best I can to fix those issues, and also pop a comment in the comment section down below if you found this one helpful. Now this method I have used for the little bird blanket tutorial, which is a paid for pattern over on my Ravelry shop, and I have also used it for the little bird cushion cover, which will be a pattern that will be coming out on the channel in the next month or so, or is already on the channel. A link will be up there if you're watching this later on in 2023. Alright, so come on, grab your yarn, grab your hook, and let's get going. Be using 2 different colours of yarn today. Sorry about the lighting on this, but it's snowing outside, which means I've not got any natural light to work with, so I'm having to use my overhead light, which is just too bright. So apologies now. I will try my utmost to be as clear as possible in today's video. Now the yarn that I have chosen to use is this Koala. Now I found this in the back of my stash. I need to get it used up, so I thought, hey, why not? Now, of course, you can't read the label properly on one of those balls, so let's take it out. Let's see if I can focus in a little bit better so that I can read it. I don't know about you lot. Alright, oh, there we go. Okay, so they are saying to use a 4mm or a size G/6 hook. Now the colourway is Affinity Cornflower. There is a 25 grams, or that amount of ounces, 65 meters or 71 yards per ball. It is 100% acrylic. Okay, there's a little bit more information there. Now it's made in China. Okay, I'm not going to say anything, but yes, this yarn is a little bit rougher than what I'm used to working with. When I picked it up, I did in fact think it had wool in it. Okay, now this is the issue. It says to hand wash only, do not bleach, do not iron, do not tumble dry. This is the real reason why I left it in my stash. Oh crikey, whatever I make I'm going to have to hand wash. No, I'm not, I'm just going to use it as samples. Right, okay, so there's lots of other information there as well in lots of different languages. And if you like this yarn, you should be able to get it or find information on it on Facebook and all these other looped things that are down the bottom here, or of course you can pop to careercrafts.com. I will look that up, and of course I'll pop that in the description box down below if the link still works. Now, I bought this yarn years ago, years and years and years ago, probably about 2 years ago, maybe even 3. It'll be on a really old video. If I have time, I will see if I can find it for you, and that of course will either be linked in the I button up here or in the description box down below. Okay, now it's time to start the tutorial. Okay, so grab your 4mm hook, or whichever hook you are using. Now this, as far as a 4mm goes, is sorry, I thought it was a DK and it's rather thin. But let's give this a go. Right, pop a slip knot on your hook and a chain 5. In the third chain from the hook, pop a double crochet. In the fourth chain from the hook, add a double crochet. And the fifth chain from the hook, you got it, another double crochet. Okay, your square should look something like this, which has the chain running up the side and 3 double crochets. Now we're going to work onto a block number 2. Again, we are chaining 5. We are going to repeat the steps from block number 1 by placing a double crochet into the third chain from the hook, then the fourth chain from the hook, and then the fifth chain from the hook. Now at this point you've got 2 squares that look like a little pair of legs. What you're going to do is rotate square number 1 180 degrees, and then where that chain 2 is from the original chain 5, we are going to place our hook between that chain 2 and the first double crochet. Pull up a loop and finish it off as a slip knot. Make it nice and tight. Okay, so that is a block number 2 of row number 2. Now for block number 2 of row number 2, you are going to just chain 2. Okay, then we are going to place 3 double crochets around this chain 2 from block number 1. So I'll pop in 3 double crochets, and there you go. So that is block number 2 of row number 2. Now this square today I am only going to be doing 5 rows, okay, because otherwise the tutorial will take forever. So let's move up to row number 3, block number 1, sorry, of row number 3. We are increasing, so we are chaining 5. Now the increase starts at the beginning of every single row at this point, so this is the increase. Okay, so we hook over and we place a double crochet in the third, fourth, and another one in the fifth. Okay, so that is 3 double crochets you're working. And there we go. And again, our block is facing the wrong way, so we rotate all of our previous work 180 degrees, and then we slip stitch between the chain 2 and the first double crochet. sorry, I'm resting my arm and I've trapped a nerve. Okay, so you've slip stitched to join. Now a little trick I've got here is to fold that square out of the way so you don't catch your hook when you speed up. Okay, now we are going to chain 2. Now this is the same method we use on every block all the way down the rest of each row. Okay, so it's chain 2 and place 3 double crochets around that chain 2 space. Then slip stitch to the next block and you slip stitch in the same place as previously, which is between the chain 2 and that first double crochet, then chain 2 and repeat the previous block. By adding those 3 double crochets in. Okay, so that is the 3rd block in row 3. Now each time you do an increase row, you will gain 1 extra block to what you had on the previous row. That is how you know you're on increase rows, if you ever have to put your work down. Okay, now let me show you the increase again. Remember, you're chaining 5. You're placing a double crochet into the 3rd, the 4th and the 5th chain from your hook. So there's the first, second and 3rd double crochet. Now rotate all your previous work 180 degrees and pop a slip stitch between the chain 2 and the first double crochet in the block below. Okay. There you go. Now it's a case of doing our standard chain 2, 3 double crochets, then slip stitch into this next block. Now remember, the slip stitch joins this block to the one in the row below. And it's the same method all the way along the row until you get to the end of the last block. And you slip stitch in between the chain 2 and the first double crochet in the block from the row below. Chain 2, sorry. Okay, so at the end of row 4, you will have 4 blocks on the diagonal, 4 blocks along the bottom and 4 blocks along the top. Really nice and simple. So now we're working onto row number 5. Okay, I may be working a little bit faster than you now, so if you wish to either pause the video or of course speed it up or slow it down, the buttons are available to you on YouTube. I think for most parts they're in this corner. Right, okay, you ready? Chain 5. 3 double crochets starting in the third chain from your hook. I've said that 4 flipping times. Thank gosh for editing, eh? Rotate your work 180 degrees. Place a slip stitch between the chain 2 and the double crochet in the block from the row below. Chain 2, 3 double crochets around the chain 2 from the row below. I picked the worst yarn for this. Slip stitch to the adjoining block, chain 2, and repeat. Slip stitch the adjoining block, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Slip stitch to the adjoining block, chain 2, place your 3 double crochets. Okay, so you have now completed that step. You have got 5 rows and 5 blocks on each side. Now it's time to refer back to your pattern if you have a pattern or a video to find out, of course, whether you've got any colour changes that you need to do. I'm not going to be showing you full colour changes today. That is already on the videos that have been released, or the links to the videos that will be released if you have purchased the written pattern. Okay, now it's on to the next step, which is turning your corner. Right, so we'll grab our yarn again, and it's time to work on the first corner. So now we are not chaining up, okay, anymore. There is no more chaining up. Okay, we are going to turn our work, and hopefully you'll be able to make it out. Along the top here you've got 3 stitches. Okay, you are going to slip stitch loosely through each of those 3 stitches. Now if you pull them too tight, it will bunch up your block, and of course this is on the edge of your work, so you don't want them bunching. Okay, so that's 1, 2 and 3. Alright, so now it's time to form the first block in row number 6, or whichever row you are doing that follows on in your pattern. You are now going to chain 2 only. Now I like to place a stitch in the same place, sorry, a double crochet in the same place that the chain came out, because it gives a neater block. Okay, but if you are not too worried, you just pop your 3 double crochets around the chain as normal. Oops, sorry, I moved my arm. Okay, so this is how I do it. 1 where the chain 2 came out, and then 2 double crochets around the chain 2. Slip stitch to the top placement as you have done with your increased rows. There we go, there is our first corner turned. Don't panic, it will look a bit neater when we put the next row in. Okay, now carry on going as normal with your chain 2 and 3 double crochets all the way down your work. Now what you need to take what you need to consider, is the pattern that you are working. If you are working one of my written patterns, sometimes my blocks, like in my cupcake tutorial and of course the little bird tutorial and some future ones, do not have the same row count working up as they do working across. So please bear that in mind. There will be highlighted in the written pattern when to turn a corner. Okay, so you may end up at the end of this row, depending on the pattern that you're following, having to still chain up. Okay, but for today's tutorial we are doing a solid square. No mucking around. So that is my chain 2. Sorry, I decided to talk instead of crochet. Let's get on with the rest of this row. So to form the perfect square, this row needs to be the same as the row before your turn. So in our case, there was 4 squares, then we had our 5 with our corner, so now we only need 4. Okay, so you stop when you slip stitch to the top of the square. Okay, you do not carry on with the chain 2, so you only in total create 4 squares. Once you're at this point, we turn our work and we slip stitch in those 3 stitches at the top of the square that we have just created. Okay, oh, this yarn. Okay, I may not be using this for tutorials and much more. Alright, okay, so chain 2, place 1 double crochet where the chain 2 came out, keeps your edge looking neat, and 2 double crochets around the chain 2. And we are only making 3 squares in this row. So basically, as you decrease, so does your number of squares that you need to create. You'll notice you'll go a heck of a lot faster. A little tip I like to do is to place a stitch marker in the top of the row, or should I say in the edge of the square, to stop me from working my way around. I do it quite regularly. Not paying attention and just enjoying making the squares, and end up making more and having to frog them back. Okay, so we have got our 3 little squares. Slip stitch as normal, turn your work and place 3 slip stitches in the edge of your work, or in the top of those stitches I should say. Chain 2, and now you're going to place 2 squares in. Pop your chain, your first double crochet, into the same spot your chain comes out of, and then 2 around your chain 2 chain. I think I need to put my teeth back in, gang, or switch my brain back on. Okay, slip stitch to the edge of the square as you've done previously, chain 2, and pop those 3 double crochets in. And slip stitch to your edge. That's right, you guessed it, and turn your work. And a slip stitch along the edge for a count of 3, chain 2. Now we're on our last square now, which is super cool. So pop in that first double crochet where the chain came out, and then 2 double crochets around the chain 2. Slip stitch to the top of your square. Turn your work. Now this is a cheeky tip to straighten up that edge a little bit. You are going to slip stitch for a count of 3. And then bind off in your normal method. Oh, dodgy scissor alert. And there we go. So that is the end of square number 1. Now for square number 2, I'm going to have to show you how to do the stripe method. So yes, I will be using 2 colours on this section. Again, the blue, because hey, I want to use it up. And a strange looking pink. Okay, the colour of this, colourway for this one, hold on, is the same name as the other one, I think. Oh no, there we go. And this one is Affinity Heather. Okay, so the blue was Affinity Cornflower. Right, so and now we are going to be working into the top or the bottom, depending on what your pattern calls for. And we are going to be working our stripes. Now what you could have done is slip stitched your colour in on that last pull through, okay, and changed the colour that way. Really, I should have shown you that method. I'll have to do that on the next block. Okay, so but if you haven't done it, don't panic. Stick your hook in as close as you can and pull up your yarn. We are then doing a chain 2. Well, I'm gonna fasten the yarn, sorry, and chain 2. Now this is the cheeky join as you go method. Okay, so we've joined our yarn, pulled it tight, we've chained 2. We're going to slip stitch over to the gap between your blocks, okay, and pop a slip stitch in. You are then chaining 2, turning your work, and then working over the first part of your chain, so those first chain 2s, that's the only bit you're working over, and you're going to place in 3 double crochets. Okay, and that is your first block formed with your join as you go method. Now for the second row, you're working up the side, which means you need to do your increase. Okay, so that is your chain 5, placing a double crochet in the 3rd, 4th and 5th chain from your hook, then turning your project 180 degrees and slip stitching in the normal spot. Okay, chain 2, and then of course we are working into this chain 2 as we've done previously. Now the difference here is if you're working stripes, as I will be now, you are going to change your yarn on the last pull through of that third double crochet. Okay, just like that. Then you will be slip stitching in your new colour to the gap between the next two unworked blocks. Just like that. All nice and neat. Okay, you have ends to sew in, but it's nice and neat. And then we're going to chain 2 and repeat basically what we did for block number 1. Chain 2, the slip stitch between the next two blocks. This is going to be a little bit harder for you to see. Then we chain 2 more and we turn our whole project. Place 3 double crochets around the first part of the chain that you created. And then of course work your blocks up as you normally do. Now this chaining method that's joining your blocks has the same chain count as the sides of your blocks. This is done purposely so it all forms the same shape. Oh, I'm catching there. There we go. When you get to the end of this row, our next row of course is an increase row because we are copying the same box counts on this one as this one. Oh, the back of mine looks messy at the moment, but hey, at least I can tell what's front and what's back. Oops, sorry. So that is the end of block 2, row 3. Gets confusing. We are chaining up 5 for our increase. And then placing our 3 double crochets into the chains as you've done previously. I'll say it again though. Chain number 3, 4 and 5 from your hook. I think you're probably saying this to yourself by now, aren't you? And there we go. Turn your work and carry on back down your row. As we go. Now I like to, on my patterns that I have already put out on the channel, I do normally go for 2 rows of each colour because then all your ends are all at the same end of your work, and if possible, if you're able to carry it, then you can, or of course run it up the side or something. Okay, so we will keep going. Now the stripe on this one, the stripes on this one will be slightly off because I'm just running 2 rows of each colour backwards and forwards, and of course this is only a 5 block sample, not a 6, so the maths is going to be wrong. My square is going to be wonky, but I don't care. If you wish to play around a little bit more, if you're making this a small sample along with me, of course you can, and you could just join the one colour and then have your ends running up the other side. Okay, so there we go, we are slip stitching to the wrong square because I'm now at the point where I need to change my colour again. Okay, now I haven't cut the end off yet, I'm a bad girl, but there we go. Right, so now of course I'm changing colour again, so I'll show you that again. You pop your yarn over and slip it through on that very last double crochet, and then join between the 2 blocks. gentle tug, make sure they're nice and neat. Mine isn't, but don't panic. Right, we're going to chain 2 with our join to go method, slip stitch into the edge of your work as you've done previously. Okay, like that into the edge of the block, chain 2, turn the whole thing, ignoring my messy ends. We're now going to work over the first section of the chain 2. It runs parallel with your block, or block, what was it, block number 1. Okay, there we go. Then carry on going all the way up the end. And of course at the end of this one you will be turning your first corner. So if you need to be reminded how to turn the corner, there will be of course a timestamp in the comments section down below, okay, which will take you back to the blue block, and it will be this corner here, so that you can then follow along with the pattern, as there is no more need to do our join as you go method, because it's done. Okay, so from this block on, it's a case of turning your corner and then decreasing each time by turning the corner at the beginning of each row. I'll meet you back here when you've finished this little block. And of course, alternating your colours as you go. Okay, so and now I'm going to show you how to change your colour, okay, if you are working along an edge. Okay, so along the side of the blanket rather than the join at the bottom. Okay, when you get to the top of your row and you've just joined it with that slip stitch, you are going to run 2 slip stitches along the edge. On your 3rd slip stitch, that is where you change colour. So pop your hook through, pull up the new yarn colour, pull it through, and that is your last slip stitch along the side. Then you chain up 2 as normal, because at this point you're decreasing, or I am decreasing, and then I carry on the pattern as normal. Hope that helps. I'll see you shortly. Okay, so and now I'm back with you for the very last block in this row. I need to talk you through it that much, but just in case. Chain 2 up the side, then place your 3 double crochets, slip stitch to the block on the previous row, turn your work, slip stitch up the side for a count of 3, and then fasten off, unless of course the colour that you will be working next is this is the colour that you need. Right, so for chain number 3, what am I talking about? Box number 3, I am using the pink. So because I'm using the pink, I have left my yarn attached. Okay, so I'm going to now work the pattern for box number 1, but starting over here for box number 3. So let's chain 2, skip over because we're using the join as you go method, chain 2, turn, place 3 double crochets in, do that first chain. Oh, there we go. Okay, and we are going to literally now follow the same pattern that we did in the solid colour here, we are using the joining method again that we used between blocks 1 and 2, but we are now working along the side. Okay, let's pop it like that. So we're now working along the side and joining our yarn along the side, okay, as we go. So I'm going to be quiet, I'm going to show you how I'm doing it, but not really talk you through it. I'll just pop it on at a faster speed for you. There we go. There is the end of a block number 3. Now, as you saw at the end of that video, I got a little bit carried away. And of course, I was planning to keep going. Oh, sorry, block number 3 should be sitting like that. Excuse the messy ends. As you know, I haven't sewed them in yet. Okay, so next we're going to be working onto a block number 4. So for this one, you need to take into consideration your stripes, okay, and the way that your stripes are going. Now, please check, of course, the written pattern if you have purchased it for whichever one you're using, because in that I will tell you where to join. Okay, so for the stripes to go up this way, we need to ensure that they go this way. So if we started working from this corner, we would have block 1 there, block 2 and 3 there, which does mean that our stripes will go up diagonally, which is brilliant. If we started from here, we'd have block 1, block 2, block 3, and again the stripes go up diagonally. If you start from here, from the center, okay, you'd have block 1, block 2, block 3, which means that your stripes would go up in the opposite direction. Okay, so let's start on to a block number 3. As it's already attached, I'm going to keep going with a pink on this block to copy the 3 sections here, and then wait till the end of the video. I've got a cheeky extra for you. Okay, so let's turn the work and prep ready to go. Now we are going to be joining on both sides this time, so it does get a little bit hot, but don't panic, you will be fine. So we'll start with our chain 2. I'd already done one, sorry about that. So it's chain 2 and jump over to that gap as we had done on previous blocks, and slip stitch in, chain 2, turn your work, and of course place your 3 double crochets around the chain. So that's a block number 1 done, nearly, and nice and simple. Right, block number 2 for row, block number 1 for row number 2. Do your chain up 5. If you wished, of course, you could have changed colours on that last change through, but we're going to be changing colours down here just to make things a little bit more awkward. Okay, so that is chain 5, work your 3 double crochets, turn your work, slip stitch in. Next square, square number 2, row number 2. On that 3rd double crochet, stop on the second before the last pull through, and change your yarn. Okay, move those out of the way. Slip stitch into the gap between the next 2 blocks. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Chain 2, skip over to the gap between the next 2 blocks. So that is the gap between block 2 and 3, and then the gap between block 3 and 4. And chain up 2, turn your work, place 3 double crochets around that first section of your chaining, and then carry on your row as normal, remembering to increase at the end. Now of course you're going to alternate your colours until we get down to this bottom section here. Okay, so here we are about to start row number 5. Okay, so this is where we slightly change our pattern because we are now working along 2 sides. So for this block it's a little bit different. Okay, are you ready? We're going to slip stitch in as normal, chain 2 as normal, skip over to the gap between the blocks. Okay, pop your slip stitch in. This is where it changes. We chain 2 and then jump up the side block and slip stitch in the gap between the 2 blocks. Then we turn our work, go back to the first set of chains and work our double crochets around. Now I count this side chain as a double crochet just for this block, but as you do it, if you don't like the look of it, add another chain in, another double crochet in, sorry. Okay, so let's lay that down and hopefully you'll be able to see it. Okay, so there it is. Now, as I said, it's up to you. You can add either the two double crochets in or a third double crochet in, depending on if you like the work. Here it is from the front. Should have really just connected it so you can see. Okay, so it does look like a double crochet, a sneaky double crochet hidden in the corner. Now it looks perfectly fine and lovely if you're using a bog standard DK weight yarn, like of course the Plateau Everyday DK that I use for all of my tutorials. But in regards to this slippery yarn, I'm going to add a third in just to bolster it out a little bit, okay, because I don't think it looks perfect. Otherwise, you know what a pain in the bottom of a perfectionist I can be. Right, now we carry on our row as normal, and of course this is row number 5, so we need 5 blocks working up. That was block number 1 just done. Now you're going to of course turn your corner and work down, and then we are just doing the join as you go method, working up the side of block number 3. Am I confused? But basically this block here. Now we are going to chain 2 and join to the gap between the next 2 blocks as normal. Do not chain anymore. Turn your work. And then place 3 double crochets around the chain from the row below. Okay, so in that normal placement there, it may actually be a stitch that you end up working around rather than a chain, depending on how your blocks sit. Now we just carry on as normal, working our row. I'll meet you back here in a moment for the last block. Place 2 double crochets around the chain 2 spot. I'm going to add a third because this yarn is not making it look the same as it does with the DK. Slip stitch to the last block, turn your work, and then of course run up a couple of slip stitches up the edge of your work to square it off. Then tie off your yarn in your normal way, sewing them ends. Okay, so there we go. That is the back of your work. You can see this cheeky chain that slides up the side. But I'm sorry, I couldn't think of another way or work another way where that would work on this one side, because of course it is a bit more awkward than the others. Okay, so just ensure that you are using the chain 2 method going up, and of course the chains still match in. You still have the 5 chains, whether it be running loosely up the side of your stitches, which you should be able to wiggle in and poke in so it looks neater, or of course the other way. Right, so let's turn this over. What side's what? I really don't know. Right, anyway, that's roughly what your squares will now look like. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Sorry it was a little bit confusing at the end. It's now time for lunch and my brain's shutting down. Right, keep an eye out. I have a little idea for you coming up in a few moments, if of course you are not making any C2C blankets at the moment and you just wanted to have a nose and see what I was going on about. But for everybody else, thank you very much for joining today's tutorial. I hope I've helped explain the C2C Join as you go method a little bit easier for you than what I have done in written form. Right, I'm going to head off now. I will see you all really soon. Remember, stay chilled, stay happy, and keep crafting. Right, thank you for waiting and finding out what I was jabbering on about. Okay, the plan is that I'm going to make a crazy C2C square blanket at some point. I'm saying some point now. Look, I did do some of this while I was editing and listening to myself. But I've decided I cannot work with this yarn for this type of project. Actually, I can't work with the yarn at all. It's horrid. So keep an eye out on the channel at a later point for some crazy square blanket, or of course another C2C blanket. Right, bye everyone.